I think we should go ahead and start. Commissioner Ciampi, do you want to welcome everyone?
Be my pleasure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Ciampi. That's my name in the middle there in between these two lovely ladies. I am a Martin County Commissioner, and I've known Emily for many, many years, and we've collaborated, and she's mentored not just myself personally, but the company that I work for here in Palm City, Florida, through some of her other affiliations. And when we got together several months ago and she was telling me about the exciting things she's been doing with Nancy, I thought, what a great opportunity, especially considering the pandemic and how difficult business has been for everyone. I thought any opportunity that we can have to educate, enlighten, and encourage is a great endeavor for all of us to participate in. I've always believed that knowledge is power, and in the business world, knowledge is also success and money. And so I recognize a lot of familiar names on the list, and I'm appreciative to see you all. Those of you that have joined us for some of our other events will know the value that you're about to receive. And so especially for women, there's a lot of chambers and business development boards and things that are more broad-based for everyone, but to have two experts in the field that happen to be women, that happen to also focus on women knowledge, empowerment, and skills, what a great way for you to spend the next hour or so. So it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy and Emily. You're in for a treat, and I hope you enjoy it, and I wish you all success. If there's any way as a commissioner I can help you, the locals, or even if you're from out of town and have questions about government, feel free to reach out to me as well. But I think you'll enjoy this next hour, and thank you so much for participating.
Thank you very, very much, Commissioner Ciampi, for your continued support, for your sponsorship, and for your passion around women in business. I'm Nancy Allen, and I'm happy to welcome all of you onto this call. The Women's Business Development Council of Florida certifies, connects, and champions women in business. And our mission is to help you grow your business. The WBDC Florida has 3 banners. One is called WHWH Florida, the Women's Business Enterprise Council of Florida. And through WHWH Florida, we certify your business so that you can access corporate and federal contracts. We do that through a partnership with a national organization called the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. We call that organization WBENC, and WBENC has the designation of being the largest third-party certification organization for women-owned businesses. Our second banner is called the Growth Shift, and that's for all women in business, whether you are certified or not. Certification has certain criteria. You have to prove that you own, operate, manage, and independently control 51% or more of your company. And through the Growth Shift, we have opened the doors to all women in business, whether you're just starting out, whether you're thinking about going into business, whether you've been in business for a little bit, or if you're at the tail end of your career thinking about exiting. So through the Growth Shift membership, we've got lots of resources and programs for you. And our third and newest banner is the Nancy G. Allen Creative Banner. And through that banner, we focus on you as the CEO of yourself. We believe that the way you show up personally is the way you show up professionally, and vice versa. So through the Nancy G. Allen banner, we talk about mindset, about creativity, about leadership, all the things that are important in your life as a whole. So welcome to the second in this series that's sponsored by Commissioner Ciampi. And we're glad you're here. Some housekeeping. I see that a lot of you have put information in the chat related to your business, how you heard about this event. So thank you very much for that. And as Emily is presenting, if you have questions, please type those in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat. And after Emily's presentation, we will take questions. So thank you again for your participation. And now I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
So much, Nancy. Thank you, Ed. Thank you all for being here. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have you all with us, and welcome to our discussion today. And I'm going to ask you, before I share my slides really quickly, I'm going to ask you if you would put in the chat what motivated you to sign up for today's workshop, maximizing your skills, your negotiation skills, maximizing value for yourself and your business. What was your main motivation? That would be great to see. If you don't mind sharing that while I get our screen ready to share. And I may or may not see the chat while I'm sharing. So,
right. So I'll be monitoring the chat, Emily.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Okay.
So Jeannie has already responded to your questions that she's not good at negotiating. I think a lot of people feel that way, Jeannie. Okay. And you will learn some great tips.
Right. And you know what, Jeannie, if I could push you a little further, why would you say that? Because today is the day where we want to kind of get to the heart of the matter. And did I share the wrong thing? Okay, well, yeah, at least you know what's coming up next. Nancy's coming up next time, but I think I shared the wrong screen. Hold on. No, I'm not. Oh, you guys, I'm looking at two screens, so please forgive me. All right, let me get myself on one screen so I don't confuse myself. All right, very good. So you should see my screen, negotiation skills to maximize value for yourself and your business. Okay, excellent. So again, welcome. And Nancy gave us a great overview, and I'm just going to give a brief introduction. I won't repeat what she just said, but I had a couple slides in there to highlight that, to reinforce who we are as an organization, get into the presentation, and then of course, Q&A and next steps. So here we are, all of us are regional directors from around the state of Florida, 5 regions with the WBDC. So we're here for you, and this is what we look like. And here's behind the scenes our certification team. And so you get to see a sense of who runs it and who we serve. Over 800 women business enterprises in the state, employing over 22,000 people and millions in dollars of annual revenue. So that's what the certification's about, what we represent at WBEC. And what Nancy just shared with you, here are 3 banners again, but you get to just see it. WBEC Florida for certification, the Growth Shift, as she shared, our new program, and the Nancy G. Allen coaching and business masterminds. And so here I am, me, Emily McHugh. I'm an entrepreneur, author of The Little Girl's Guide to Entrepreneurship, business coach, and violinist in my somewhat spare time. And I'm happy to be with you today to share this topic, which is very near and dear to my heart. One of the things I learned very early on when I started my business was how critically important it is to understand how to negotiate. The only thing at the time, I didn't quite look at it that way. But upon reflection over the years, that was one of the motivations when I wrote my book and so forth, was to really address that issue, because it is the cornerstone of business success. I truly have come to find that to be true. Okay, so let's launch right into the topic without any further ado whatsoever. So I'm asking you the question, what are negotiation skills? So we want to define the terms that we're using. And I've defined them as effective techniques and strategies, insights that facilitate reaching a successful outcome. And you can define it, tell me how you define it. But the goal is to go from A to B and do it as effectively as you can. Sometimes easier said than done, but that's the goal anyway. All right, so what determines value? And I put here that it's importance, worth, usefulness of something that is meaningful, necessary, or desired. Value, very subjective, by the way. So it starts with having a negotiation mindset. And I'll ask also in the chat, how many of you like to negotiate? Are you comfortable negotiating? Or what do you feel when you think of the word negotiation? Do you think of it as a confrontation? Do you think of it as, what goes through your mind? Because whatever is that first thing that's going through your mind, that is the thing that's dominating your approach to the concept of negotiation, and that will also impact how you go about it. So this is the time to be really truthful with yourself. You don't have to put it in the chat if you don't want to, but maybe you want to put it on a sheet of paper, because I want this to be a very interactive thing in terms of how you're thinking and processing what I'm sharing. So if you have a notebook or some paper, you may want to write this down. So what's the first thing that goes through your mind as you think of the word negotiation? Now, these are some keywords to keep in mind here as well. Do you think it's selfish? Is it selfishness to be looking out for your best interest versus self-preservation versus success? And many people, they use different words to describe how they feel. And this is very critical that you describe how you feel. Again, if you want to share it, it'd be great to hear what you think. But some people feel guilty to negotiate. Are you one of them or not? So let's see. All right, so we're going to break it down. So today I'm going to focus on 3 key concepts and a framework for negotiation. I have spent the past month, few weeks reading, studying, doing all kinds of things in preparation for today, as far as let me get all the tips that there are on negotiation, all the insights that there possibly are. Well, we could be staying here all day going through all the tips and all the insights, and you probably would leave not remembering them. But I think you're going to remember these 3 things, because this is what it boils down to, and all the other techniques can be filled in between, and you're going to see. So negotiation skills to maximize value for yourself and your business involves starting, number 1, with what do you want? Number 1, let's start right there. What do you want? Number 2, how to ask for it. And number 3, what is it worth? Now you will notice I did not say what is the value, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. I specifically put the word worth. All right, so these are the 3 things that we're going to delve into each of them and see what that means. And now this, you look at it, you take a moment to take it in, very simplistic, very basic, because at the core, that's what negotiation is. However, how we go about it is where it gets more involved. I like to call this my WHWH strategy. The what, the how, the what. Okay. And any which way it's the same. All right. So let that imprint on you. Okay. Very good. And anytime you have a negotiation on hand, think WHW. And that does a few things for you. It slows you down, it creates a filter, and it centers you on what you need to be thinking about. Why do you need negotiation skills? Why do we need negotiation skills? So that you can get what you want. No, it is not selfish. It depends what it is you want. Now, that's another story. But anyhow, we're assuming everything you want right now is all good. So that's why this is so important. And the question is, what do you want? What do you want? And so we're going to go through some of these thoughts here. So do you know what you want? And so what I would encourage you to do is think of a negotiation situation that you may have been in the past, that you may currently be in, and maybe try to think through that and attach these words to that situation or that scenario, so it can be very tangible and within a specific context, because I think that helps to make it more direct and personal. So what gets in the way of you knowing what you want in the event if you don't know or not sure all the things that you do want? For some people, it could be pride. And you might say, why is that? Well, think about it. Fear, well, that's more obvious because fear, that's a big reason why a lot of us don't ask for what we want, because we're afraid to ask for it. We're afraid of ramifications, consequences, and so on. Embarrassment, depending on what you're asking for. Finding the right words to ask, and on and on. And you can add to the list. Again, this is not meant to be exhaustive in any way. It is a instigating or a catalyst for further thought. So this will get you thinking about other words or other things. Just let me know if this is resonating with you. And then the next question is, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel in asking for what you want? Or how do you want to feel about what it is that you want? So comfortable, safe, happy, valued. Again, add to the list. How do you personally want to feel? Okay. So most people in a negotiation are driven by, as the text says here, fear, or by the desire to avoid pain. Too few are driven by their actual goals. And this is by Chris Voss. And this is one of the books that I've been reading here. This is Never Split the Difference. It's called Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. And Chris Voss is a former FBI investigator, hostage negotiator. He was a lead hostage negotiator. And many of you may have heard of him or seen him about his book. He's also on the masterclass program. He's been on Clubhouse. He was on Clubhouse this week. I was on a chat where he spoke for like 3 hours, answering questions, sharing insights. It was phenomenal. He was on there with Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank and all these other people, and they were sharing amazing insights on how they negotiate as women and as a man and so forth. So it was very insightful. So as I listened to Chris Voss, and when he talks about negotiating as though your life depends on it, I truly believe that our lives do depend on negotiation. We may not be in a life or death situation like a hostage crisis, but what happens in your life certainly depends on how you negotiate and your ability to effectively negotiate. So yes, we should absolutely negotiate as though your life depends on it. All right, step one with the knowing what you want. So the first thing you want to do is make a list of what you want. And on that list, don't hold back. Don't hold back. Don't censor yourself. Don't say, oh, I can't get that. No, that's not the time. This is the time to ask for what you want. Go for what you want. So your utopia, what is your ideal situation? What is the total reward? And I put asterisk satisfaction. And I use caution with the word satisfaction because it might seem to some as settling. You know, it depends on how you use the word. So I kind of cautiously use it. Total fulfillment, your dream, your ultimate desire. What is it? And are you willing to share that with someone, or most importantly, with yourself? Can you honestly admit to yourself what you truly want? And I use these terms because there are some people who cannot. There are those who are great at it. And if you're already great at it, then that's a wonderful thing to maintain and continue to get better. But for those who are reticent to do this because there are voices inside your head telling you, well, no, you know, and you kind of talk yourself out of the very thing that you want. So this is not the time. This is the time to put it out there and put it on a piece of paper. And here's what your list could look like. And this is what I have highlighted in my book. So let me bring up my little book again, The Little Girl's Guide to Entrepreneurship. I put in here a whole section on negotiating for what you need for your business. And this is the list of what I want. So I encourage you that if you any form of negotiation that you're about to embark on, whether it's getting a new car, whether it's buying a house, whether it's a new job, pay raise, whatever, just think of all these scenarios you need to negotiate for one reason or another. Write yourself 3 columns. The first is, what must I have? It's non-negotiable. I must have these things. What would I like to have? you know, nice to have or nice to have. And then what's expendable? What can I truly do without? I can truly do without, neither here nor there for me. So you kind of classify them, and it's important to classify it because then you can keep clear, remember what it is you want, because you know you can forget. You can sometimes get caught up in the agenda of the other person on the other side and you forget your own. So this is a reminder, not only for clarification to identify, number one, but number two, to remind yourself of what is indeed important to you, keeping that front and center as you engage on this process. And this is a part of your preparation. You do not want to go into a negotiation cold, hoping for the best, winging it. That is not a prudent approach. Preparation is key. So there, get your 3 columns out and have them ready. And this scripture text, many people have quoted, ye ask and receive not because ye ask amiss. So you ask for something and you wonder why you don't get it, but maybe you're not asking the right way, and hence, we're going to talk about that. So that takes us into our second section about how to ask for what you want. And so what will it take? That's the question. What will it take? And this is what it takes. It takes what you believe the most. So what you truly believe is more than likely what you will receive. So what is your choice of thoughts? And yes, I put choice because you do choose your thoughts. Even though they can become automated at some point, they kind of just tend to happen and your brain just does what it wants to do. You can take control of your mind and you can take control of your thoughts. You take control of your choice of words. What you believe, are you confident about what you believe? Do you believe you deserve it? Merit, I put the word merit. Should you really get it? Do you have the expertise? Is the timing right? Okay. And do you believe that you will actually receive it? Sometimes people don't ask for things just because they don't think they're going to get it. So they're like, why bother ask? Why bother apply for that? I won't get in. Why bother try? It's not going to work. And we just negate it before go. A bad habit that I think we're all guilty of at some stage or another. And we need to catch ourselves because it becomes a default thought process, a default mechanism. So dangerous. We have to be careful of our default mechanisms. So this is about rewiring our whole brains about negotiation. And I tell you, after I finished reading the books that I mentioned to you, that's what started to happen to me. I realized the things that I was taking for granted. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doing that. Yeah, I'm guilty of that. So kind of catch myself. So now how do you express it? Now this right here takes special note. What is the tone of your voice? What is the cadence of your speech? How well are you articulating your thoughts to yourself and to someone else? What are your emotions? How do you feel? Again, what are you feeling? And how urgent is the situation for you? How urgently do you need this to happen? What is the level of urgency? And I will just throw in here right now as a little tip, the level of urgency should be low. Why do I say low? Meaning taking your time. And we're going to get into that a little more as well. You don't want anyone rushing you in a negotiation. That is so key. Some might play mind games with yourself and mind games with the person maybe you're engaging with in this discussion or negotiation. And both parties in the negotiation have different things going on in their heads. One party is saying, you know, what do I say? What do I do? The other person is like, what do I want to hear and what do I want to see? And can they match? Can they overlap? Can they come together at a place where both parties will feel that it's working for them? So yeah, it is a big game. Now I have a little quiz for you. Quiz time, everybody. Okay. So if I were to ask you, of these 4 items here, these 4 boxes, which one has the greatest impact on your communication? What would you say? Drop in the chat. Let me know. Is it the content of what you're saying, like the words you use? Is it the tone of your voice? Is it your body language? Or is it your intent? And that's a bit of a trick question. Is it your intent? So do you think it's the content, the tone, body language, or intent? Think about it for a moment before I turn the screen. So if you can type fast, tell me what you think. Guys, it'd be really interesting to see what you guys come up with. But yeah, give me a moment. Type. All right, ready? Here we go. The big reveal is coming. The big reveal is coming. These are the percentages. Now tell me if you think this is a surprise or you figured as much. It says that the results show that 7% is the content of what you're actually saying. 38% is your tone, and 55% is your body language. And intent is a question mark because I threw that in there because no one knows your intent except you. So unless of course you verbalize it. So that is something to keep in mind, because as a negotiator, your goal is to ultimately find out what is the intent of the other person. You really want to know what's motivating them. So that's kind of like the hidden thing you're trying to uncover as you engage with the person. But that body language, but let me pause on that for a moment, because, you know, here we are at an age of Zoom and, well, you know, you can see me, I can't see you right now. But when we talk on the phone or so forth, or things are not in person, how can you tell someone's body language? Well, many of you may already know that you can tell when someone's smiling when they're talking, can't you? And you certainly can tell if they're laughing. But you can tell, you can hear the smile. How do you hear a smile? How does that work? Well, it does. And people hear your smile, they hear your scowl, they hear your frown, they hear everything else. So even though you think they can't see you, boy, can they hear it. And be very mindful that however you feel can come through that phone, it can come through that Zoom. I mean, it can transmit. So our energy levels that we send are very powerful and most palpable indeed. So keep that in mind. Just because someone can't see you doesn't mean they can't read your body language. So can't hide behind the phone. No, we can't hide behind the phone. Okay, so there we go. So step 2, what are we going to do about this? How do we get better? There's only one way to get better at asking for what you want, is practice. Practice. Practice, believe, practice, achieve. You want to keep that iteration going of working on aiming at your target and how to do it better. Maybe you need to role play. Maybe you have a friend or family member that you're like, you know, I have an important negotiation coming up. I really kind of want to run through what I'm going to say because I don't know what I might say once I get in front of the person. And by doing that, you'll be surprised how much it can help you. If you don't have someone else handy to do it with, hey, stand in front of the mirror. Stand in front of the mirror and start to role play back and forth with yourself, because you will see how it will start to trigger different things. So I can't highlight this enough for you. Most successful negotiators, they're not successful at this just by luck or being born with this talent and skill. They really hone their craft and they work at it. And a lot of it is trial and error. And of course, best practices over the years that they learn from different people and also their own experiences. So this workshop is a part of that practice and growth. All right, here's some tried and true techniques. Very, very powerful, each and every one. Now, number 1, let me think about it, is such a weapon in your arsenal of negotiating. And my mom would always say to me, Emily, remember to say, let me think about it, because I was always quick to rush to respond. And she said, don't forget, let me think about it. And as I was mentioning in the a little earlier about the Clubhouse talk with Chris Voss, the author of the FBI Negotiator, and Barbara Corcoran. Barbara Corcoran highlighted that as well. She said that's one of the main things that she says to people, and she would use throughout her years in real estate negotiations. When she'd hear a deal from someone, she'd say, you know what, let me think about it and get back to you. And this buys you time, and remembering that patience is your ultimate weapon. And when I was mentioning before about the idea of urgency, you might be in a rush to close the deal. You might be personally, but never let the other person know that. It is so important that you do not necessarily, and again, it depends on the context. Let me caution what I say, because everything is relative to the situation. So I don't want to be too blanketing in my statements, but I definitely want to say that the more patient you are, the better your chances are, because you're in no rush. Whereas many times the opposite person, they have a deadline to meet. They've got to do it. Now, this isn't to say that you're to drag your feet on every negotiation and, no, that's not the point. The point is to relax into it, not to be desperate. Even if you are, don't come off that way, because it will and can be used very much against you. So remember this. And remember, you do not have to give an answer on the spot. Many times we're talking with someone asks you the price to give me a quote for this, or give me a quote for your service, and you feel like you have to immediately respond. You don't. You may need to step back, really process what they're asking you for, take a sheet of paper, write it down, and say, okay, let me think this through now. If I do this, will this work? Will it trigger something else? Will it cost me over here? Will it, think it through, and then take your little time and get back to the person with something, with a number you can live with. Okay. And as far as the number goes, you always want to know their budget. You want to know the sense of their budget so that you get a sense of the range they're thinking. But that should not be the most important thing to you. The most important thing to you is what you evaluate, and that's coming up in a moment. So we're not going to jump ahead just yet. So here's the next thing I want you to look at. Someone asks you to do something that you think is a little unreasonable, or you think is, kind of difficult. How am I supposed to do that? And in this whole hostage negotiation book that I was reading, that was one of the main things that Chris Voss would say. If a hostage negotiator said to him, well, I need $1 million or this person dies. And he says, but how am I supposed to do that? He wouldn't say, how am I supposed to do that? He would say it in a very endearing tone. So how am I supposed to do that? And by doing it that way, he was getting their help, because they're going to help him figure out how to do it, because they want their $1 million. And so those are one of the techniques, and he mentions that quite a bit in the book. It's a great book, guys. If you want to learn about negotiation, definitely get that book. It's a wonder. It's really exciting to read it too. So how am I supposed to do that? Get the other person on your side to help them solve your problem. The third thing I have here is, and I put these up here, I linger on them a little bit, and I want you guys afterwards to linger on it too. Think of all the places you can apply these things we're talking about, because you will find more often than not, they will be very applicable. The last point right here is no deal is better than a bad deal. Always be willing and ready to walk away from something that you feel is not going to be worth your trouble. Know the difference between a good and a bad deal. And this one, I caution you as well, because sometimes some people don't even know a good deal when they see it. If you're in a situation, and I'll give you a business example. Let's say you have business inventory. You have inventory sitting there for a long time and it's not moving. And someone comes along and says, I'll take that off your hands for like half the price you want to sell it for. And you're like, no, I can't sell it for that because I'm going to lose money. But guess what? You either get that or you get zero. So what would you do? That's called a good deal right there. So you have to know when to cut your losses. Cutting your losses sometimes is a very good deal. So knowing the difference is really, really important. Knowing when to let go and not keep at it is very important. Okay, so let's get to the value part, the worth part. What is it worth? What is all this worth? What is what you want worth to you and to the other person you're engaging in the negotiation with? So what is the value to you? Value to you, is it quantifiable? Is it verifiable? Is it meaningful? Is it fair? Again, a highly subjective word. Is it commensurate with what is being requested? So, is it fair in that way? To the other person, is it a good return on their investment? Is there a multiplier effect? By having you do something, will they benefit exponentially from it? Are you the best choice? Do they even like you? Is there a demand? Is there scarcity? So all these things people are thinking about. And again, you can add to this list. And so here, let me highlight the idea of value and worth. The word worth is a very subjective term. People say, am I worthy? Is it, am I, do you ever say that, ask yourself that question? I don't feel worthy, or am I worthy? Well, if you do, let me tell you right now, don't do that anymore. Do not do that. Of course you're worthy. Of course you're worth it. So that's a definite. And as a result, you have to change that language, because again, that language is what will impact the result of your negotiation. If you don't think you're worthy, I can guarantee you the other person won't either. So it is really critical that you go into the negotiation knowing your worth, knowing your value. And the word worth tends to have a more sensitive, kind of more personal meaning, whereas value is a bit more neutral. At least that's how I see those words. I don't know how you guys see it, but that's how I kind of look at it, even though they're two sides almost of the same coin, or they could be considered synonyms as well. So think about that. Think about that. So how do we do it? Step 3. This is, I would say, almost 100% emotional. Obviously, you can do your math and you can do your economics, but how do you feel is really what it boils down to inside of you. Now remember, you were asking for upfront your nirvana, your utopia, your dream. What is it worth? What is that now worth in dollars and cents? And let me add, lest we think that this negotiation is all about money. Not at all. We do know that there are endless circumstances where money is not even the issue. It's about something else. It's about how late can I stay up if you're a teenage kid and you're asking your parents, can I, have an extended curfew or something? Or can I borrow the car? Or can I do something of that sort? So it's not necessarily monetary. But in the business world and in our personal lives, many times it has some monetary connection. So how do you feel? How do you feel about the amount being offered you, or the amount you are requesting? What do you deserve to get? Again, very subjective. What is possible? Is someone holding out on you? Could you get more? And why not? Why not? Why not more? Why not less? Why not? Why not? Whatever it is that you have in mind. And kind of pushing your boundaries a little bit in terms of what you might be confining yourself to in the event that you are. So taking the time to think about this and being very confident in it, by the way, not equivocating, wondering if you're worthy. Remember, we don't use that word anymore. Wondering what your value is. You must know. And if you need help finding it out, get the help, because it's important for your whole life's journey that you get this right. Negotiation is the heart of collaboration. Your person you're negotiating with should not be seen as an enemy, should not be seen, I wouldn't say, as the opposition. Again, those types of words help to position it in a way that it's adversarial, and it doesn't need to be adversarial at all. As a matter of fact, to the contrary, you don't want it to be adversarial. You want it to be as amicable as possible, but you still come in there with the mindset of getting what you want, but you don't have to become enemies over it. So think of it in this way, in a collaborative manner, to the extent possible. Again, depending on the situation, not all negotiations are the same, so you have to be able to adapt based on where you are. So we're going to do a little recap here. This is my summary slide. And this young lady here is breathing a sigh of relief because she's free. She has negotiated successfully. She has received what she wants. And we could go into a whole discussion on how men and women negotiate and things like that. Maybe we can do that in our chat. But here's just a quick recap. So remember the framework. Remember the framework. What do I want? Write my list. How to ask, start practicing how to do it, being aware of tone and words that you use and things of that sort. And what is it worth? What is the worth? How do you feel? Do you feel you're getting a good deal? Do you feel you're not? And why not? And address it. And knowing that you may not get everything you want just because you asked for it, because life doesn't work like that, but at least you're aware. Maybe you can't get it today. Maybe you can get it tomorrow. Maybe you can get it next year. But the point is, it's on the table as something you're aspiring towards or working towards, and it's not something you're going to forget. So it is everything in its time, but at least you have something to work with. So that is the recap. And before I stop sharing, let me do a little bit of a housekeeping. Okay, oh, this is Nancy's next talk. I'm going to just show, you know what, we'll do this. And well, let me show it now, because in case we start talking, I forget, but we can bring it back up. But save the date for April 23rd for Nancy's, the third part of our series, our Women's Business Development series, Perfecting Your Pitch. Nancy will do that on April 23rd, and I'll drop the link for the registration. Also, some next steps, signing up with us for our newsletter, our free newsletter, joining our Facebook group, all the exciting activities that we have, and you can see that on our events page. And Nancy mentioned the growth shift, and we invite you to check that out also. And then, of course, here's my contact information, and I'll also drop that in the chat. Emily McHugh, you can contact me at emilymchugh@wbecflorida.org, or give me a call at 772-460-8978. And you can visit our newly launched website, which houses all of our different banners, the womensbusiness.info. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop my screen share, and we're going to open it up to our Q&A. All right.
Great. Well, Emily, throughout your presentation, and it was a great presentation, by the way, there were some comments. One person highlighted that, you know, if you take too much time or ask, you know, can I think about this, that might push the person that you're negotiating with to go with someone else. So what can you say about that?
Well, I would definitely say, again, going back to the context. So some negotiations clearly are very much time sensitive, and most of them are. So again, not negating that point. But really what I'm saying is that don't ever feel anxious. You don't want to come off as anxious in the negotiation. So the idea is that you are taking your time to make sure that what you agree to or what you put forth is something you can live with and something you're comfortable with. And you need to take the time necessary to do so. So slowing down the negotiation process, that is really what that's all about. So someone might try to rush you, you know, you need to buy that car by the end of the month. Well, we all know there's another month and you can go and get another deal next month in that scenario. But you might be in a situation where there is not a next month and you got to do it now. Well, you can still take that little extra time to make sure you're good with the deal, and don't rush yourself to agree to something you're not ready to agree to yet.
Yeah, I put in the chat the information about Chris Voss's book, and it really is, as Emily said, a fabulous book. And if you don't have time to read the book, he's done a lot of interviews, so you can go back and listen to his many interviews. One of the things I remember him saying, which we tell our members all the time, is that you have to establish a relationship, right? People do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And the negotiation process, the pre-negotiation process, is where you can start to establish that relationship, right? So I think Emily made very clear that you don't just go in and negotiate. You've got to do some homework beforehand. You've got to know what it is that the person wants, what's their end goal, what's your end goal, and then you come across as as confident. Here's a question in the chat. My question is about coming over as desperate. How do you know when that is being portrayed in your voice and in your body language? So can you mentioned about body language being the key, right? So
it is. So some of the tips that I've heard people share is your breathing. So let's say you are feeling desperate. Maybe you start to take some deep breaths. You kind of slow your own body down. You kind of take control of your own self, and that will calm your mind and you start to get more relaxed. And as your body gets relaxed, your mind gets relaxed, and your words and your thoughts come out more flowing. And it really is a part of taking control of yourself, taking control of those thoughts again, and remembering that you have the power to do that. So you may get anxious because you feel your body just throws itself into a spasm, but you can bring it back. And when you're aware of that happening, kind of try some of those techniques.
Yeah, one of the things I kind of want to remind everyone too is that women are superb negotiators. We negotiate from dawn to dusk, all the time. If you have children in your household, you negotiate getting those kids, excuse me, to school. You negotiate the traffic getting to work. You negotiate the office politics, right? So we are natural negotiators. And what I would invite you to do is to look at the skills that you use to negotiate in your day-to-day life and see how you can apply those skills to negotiating a contract, right? Because you're good at negotiating. You wouldn't have gotten as far as you've gotten if you weren't a great negotiator, right? Key is practice, as Emily said. Key is also knowing what you want. Why do you want this contract? When you're going into the contract or this opportunity, why do you want this? What can you bring to the table that is going to be different from what the other people are bringing to the table?
There was one comment I think Jeannie asked about finding the right words in the negotiation. That's a very good point, and that goes back to writing down these lists, writing down the words, and again practicing, and having that list with you, so that you remember what it is you want to say and what it is that's important to you. There's nothing wrong with having that sheet of paper to guide you through what is important. So absolutely.
Right. Jeannie makes a really great comment about women who yell at their kids to get them to do things won't go over well at business negotiations. Yes. But other ways that you negotiate with your kids, there's give and take. Sometimes there's rewards. There are other ways that you can use some of the skills that you naturally have to negotiate. Definitely, as Jeannie says, do not yell at the person you're negotiating with.
Yeah, let me see, making sure I'm not able to see here. Right.
Okay, so Emily, let me ask you a couple of questions while we get people writing their own questions. What is an example of a successful negotiation you have encountered or you've gone through?
Well, you know what? I tend to ruminate on the ones that have not gone well, Nancy, more than I sit and think about the ones that have. So that's actually a kind of a tough question, but it's a very good question because it forces me to realize that I have disproportionately allocated my thought process in that rumination stage. But I can definitely think of some opportunities where I would say that making the effort to be persistent and asking for showing up. So for example, if someone tells you no, I know when I first started my business, Kasuri, and I would take our laptop cases and our bag samples in New York City when we lived in New York and New Jersey, I would visit different stores. And at first, some stores would be like, no, no, that's not going to work. And I'd be like, but you need this product. And they're like, but not that one. And so instead of being crushed, which I felt crushed, I went back to the drawing board, my sister and myself, and we came up with a product that they did want. Because they didn't say no to the concept, they said no to maybe that style or whatever. So we went and we worked on the style and came back, and then they did indeed order. And I think that's also part of a negotiation process, because just because it doesn't work the way you want right then and there doesn't mean it won't work the next time around. So the idea of no is not really the end, it's the beginning. And that's something else that Chris Voss highlights, that don't be afraid of no. Embrace no as an opportunity to explore a way to where they will agree that it makes sense to proceed. So understand what you're hearing from the other person. So I had many opportunities for that type of thing to happen. Mm-hmm. So I would say, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a fabulous example, Emily, because it shows how you went back to the drawing board, right? So you knew that you had something that this person could use in their store that their clients needed, and you did not take personally the fact that they said not that one, right? You went back, you probably did more research on the colors, on the shapes, on the size, on blah, 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 and then went back to present another option. Now, when women business owners bid on contracts, we always tell them that you have an opportunity to go back. If you did not get the contract, you put everything you wanted into that contract, you made that bid. Most times you can go back to that person and say, I realize that you selected someone else. Could you go over with me my contract to see what, how I fell short or what I should have done differently? This does two things, ladies. This allows you to get some really good information. It also allows you an opportunity to position yourself to establish a relationship with that contracts officer. You can position yourself by saying, I'm a woman-owned business, and could you introduce me to the person who got the contract, and I might be in a position to help them meet their supplier diversity goals, to help you meet your supplier diversity goals. So you can present yourself in another way, and you can leverage the fact that you're a woman-owned business to your advantage. Okay, Naomi says, I use my nose as a learning curve on what I can improve on the next time around. Very nicely said, Naomi.
Absolutely, it is. Okay. And Mike, you want to chime in on this topic, especially in your position as a county commissioner, and I'm sure that you certainly deal with this a lot. If you're in a position to talk, I don't know if you are or not, but if you are, feel free. If not, I get that you may not be.
I am in a position to talk. I'm paying attention. Key negotiation skills work for everybody. I know we're female centric today, but I found it very interesting. You know, I'm already a big believer in Emily McHugh. So I'll give you an interesting thing that happened to me yesterday while I was listening to you. Now, sometimes we've been focusing a lot of our attention today on you being the person asking. But there are also times when you, in a negotiation, you are the person that's being asked of. You know, I had someone yesterday contacted me. Now, the negotiation was more about an issue that they wanted me to get involved in. And it was happened to be two women. They were sisters, and a couple other people on a Zoom call, and they had an issue that was bothering them. And it's really not an issue that the county commission can assist in, but they were looking to build advocacy. And I'll tell you, how they presented themselves was a bit angry, and there was no reason to be angry at me because this was the first time I had ever met them. And I also felt that they spent too much time really machine gun talking, not even giving me an opportunity to comprehend what they were saying. Maybe they were nervous, maybe they were frustrated, I'm not sure. But the third thing is they spent so much time on a concept that I didn't personally believe in, that by the time they were done, I felt so compelled to tell them that they went about it incorrectly. And instead of bringing me on as an advocate, I felt more adversarial by the time they were done. So you have to be careful, in my opinion, in negotiation to, as Emily and Nancy had both said, keep calm, keep, the concept of listening in a negotiation, because quite often there could be clues even during the negotiation process. Like when Emily talked about that her and her sister presented that thing, some of their products, and they realized that they weren't being told no, they were being told we didn't like this specific item. If you're not listening, you'll miss that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's important, that as much as you are pitching, and look, I'm no one to talk, I do a lot of talking and rambling, but there is, when you're practicing, practice listening, practice thinking to yourself, I'm going to ask this question and then I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to ask a question that requires the person I'm speaking to answer it in not a yes or no. The same way we speak to our children, when you don't say, how was school today? And they say, fine. You say, what was the best thing that happened to you today? And so in those negotiations, I think it's just as important to listen, to hear what's happening, because if you get a hint that your strategy is not working, you might have an opportunity to pivot even during the same meeting that you're at. And that's my 2 cents.
Right, and I think, Ed, thank you. You bring up the point that reinforces what Emily said about that tactic that was highlighted in the book. How can I do that? Right. So as you're negotiating and something comes up that you weren't anticipating, put the ball back in the other person's court by saying, that's something that I would really like to present to you, but how can I do that? What ideas do you have that might enable me to do what you're asking me to do?
Agreed.
All right, well, we are at the end of our session today, and I want to thank everyone for participating. Again, thank you, Commissioner Ciampi, for your support of this 3-part workshop. Thank you, Emily, for a fabulous presentation, and thank you to the participants. By way of reminder, we are going to be sending you the recording of this call, as well as the chat. But if you'd like to save the chat right to your computer, at the bottom of the chat box, you will see 3 ellipses. You just click on that and say save chat, and it goes to your downloads. That's where you will find it on your computer. Okay, so thank you everyone for participating, and we hope to see you at the next workshop. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Ed, so much, and everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.